Nostradamus warned us about a great fire in August Prophecy 2025. August has always felt like a month on the edge of something. The heat doesn't just press, it lingers like a warning. Forests dry to tinder, skies shimmer with haze, and the horizon holds a restless glow. And in the cryptic verses of Nostradamus, August is marked not by harvest, but by a great fire, one so fierce it could change the course of nations. But this is more than a whisper from 5 centuries ago. Today, wildfires rage across continents, cities choke under burning skies, and the earth itself groans beneath the weight of our choices. It's as if the prophecy has stepped out of the past and is now walking beside us. So we have to ask, are we simply witnessing the cycles of nature or standing inside a warning written for our generation? In this episode of The Journey of Wisdom, we will walk through Nostradamus's haunting quatrain, unraveling the fire from above, the trembling ground, and the air that turns against us to see what they reveal about the year 2025. This is not a tale of doom, but of awakening, responsibility, and the possibility that the ending has not yet been written. Number 1. The Prophecy of Nostradamus. Nostradamus, in his cryptic yet haunting style, leaves us a quatrain that seems to move like the slow tightening of a vice, each line turning the pressure until the outcome feels inevitable. The trembling of the earth at Mortara, fire shall fall from heaven, the earth shall open and swallow the proud. At first glance, these words may sound like a cryptic riddle from the past, but they carry layers of meaning, both in the literal world of physical events and the symbolic realm of human behavior. Mortara and the paired names Quazel and Manua aren't meant to pinpoint exact GPS coordinates, but to serve as markers, geographic symbols that guide us to a broader truth. They hint at northern Italy's seismic corridor, a place historically vulnerable to earthquakes. Yet they also suggest any region of the world built atop hidden fractures, whether those fractures lie beneath the soil or within the stability of a society. Nostradamus often used specific names not as final answers, but as doors to deeper interpretation, allowing his warnings to apply across time and geography. The quatrain unfolds like a rising storm, moving from the first tremors to corrupted air, then to fire from above, and finally to the earth opening itself. This progression is no accident. It mirrors the way real disasters escalate, beginning with subtle warnings and ending in irreversible consequences, while also reflecting the moral journey from small acts of imbalance to a full reckoning. The trembling of the earth can be read on 2 levels. Literally, it evokes earthquakes, swarm activity, and the restless shifting of the ground along fault lines, events we have seen increase in frequency and intensity around the world. Symbolically, it speaks to the shaking of our foundations, our institutions, our infrastructure, our sense of security. Just as an earthquake rattles walls and foundations, life's tremors can shake our certainties, exposing cracks in the systems we trust. When Nostradamus moves to "the air shall be infected," we are again presented with a double meaning. In the literal sense, this can refer to toxic volcanic gases, wildfire smoke that turns skies blood red, ash clouds that blot out the sun, or even industrial pollution choking the atmosphere. But on the symbolic plane, it warns of something just as dangerous: a poisoned moral and informational climate. If the air we breathe physically is our life force, the air we breathe socially and spiritually is the environment of ideas, values, and shared truth. When this becomes tainted through lies, corruption, or division, it suffocates society from within. Then comes the chilling image: "A fire shall fall from heaven." Literally, this could be meteors blazing through the atmosphere, lightning storms igniting the land, volcanic eruptions hurling flaming debris, or even solar flares capable of crippling modern technology. Yet, in its symbolic dimension, This fire is the sudden force of correction that descends when human arrogance has pushed too far, a reminder that there are powers greater than our own, and they can arrive without warning. And finally, the earth shall open and swallow the proud. On the literal level, we picture fissures ripping open the ground, landslides consuming homes, sinkholes devouring streets. But the deeper message is about the downfall of hubris, the collapse of towering projects and power structures built on greed, exploitation, or blind overconfidence. What we construct without respect for limits, whether in the natural world or in our own lives, eventually sinks under its own weight. When we take the quatrain as a whole, it feels less like Nostradamus was marking a date on the calendar, and more like he was describing a pattern, a natural law of cause and effect. Pressure builds, whether it is geological, ecological, or moral, and if ignored, the release comes in waves, each one greater than the last. His warning is not simply a prediction of doom, but an invitation to humility. The proud are not just the tyrants of history, they are anyone past or present who mistakes dominion over the earth as a license to exploit it without consequence. This prophecy is not a story of inevitable destruction, but of choice. It tells us that when we live as if we are separate from nature, from truth, and from each other, the very ground beneath us will remind us otherwise. And in that reminder lies the chance for a different path, one where trembling becomes awakening, where the air is made clean again, where the fire from above is light instead of punishment, and where the earth supports rather than swallows us. The message is as urgent now as it was centuries ago. The forces that shape our world, whether physical or moral, will always answer to imbalance, but they will also respond to respect, care, and balance. What we choose to feed will determine the shape of the answer we receive. Number 2. Modern natural signs. Let's bring this forward into our own time and look at the modern signs that seem to echo Nostradamus's warnings, because whether we see them as prophecy or simply as patterns in nature, they have a way of speaking to us if we're willing to listen. Take Campi Flegrei in Naples, for example. This is no ordinary volcano. It's a vast caldera, a sleeping giant whose breath can change the fate of a region. In recent years, swarms of small earthquakes, bulges in the land, and sulfur-rich gases have been reported, signals that scientists understand as the ground's way of saying, pressure is moving. Doesn't that sound familiar when you think about the quatrains, trembling and infected air? These aren't just geological quirks, they're warnings written in the language of the earth. Whether or not a major eruption happens tomorrow or in 10 years, the lesson is about recognizing the pattern. Stress builds, the ground shifts, the air changes, and we humans, so often drawn to settle and build near beauty and danger alike, must ask ourselves, are we listening to what the land is telling us, or are we repeating the pride of those who came before, ignoring the signs until it's too late? Now shift your gaze halfway across the globe to Yellowstone, another vast volcanic system. Here, the warning signs are subtler but no less meaningful. Scientists speak of steady uplift just centimeters a year and a strange low hum in the earth known as harmonic tremor. They call it volcano breath, and it's as if the ground is quietly inhaling before deciding what to do next. This slow, patient movement might go on for decades without a major eruption, but isn't that also the way many great changes come quietly building in the background until one day they reshape everything? Nostradamus's warning arc of trembling, infection, fire, and collapse doesn't just match sudden disaster. It also fits these long, patient preparations that the earth makes before it releases its power. And it raises an important question for all of us. Do we only take danger seriously when it's loud and obvious, or can we learn to respect the whispers as much as the shouts? Of course, the fire from heaven that Nostradamus wrote about need not be a single event. In our modern world, it stretches across many possibilities, from fiery ejecta hurled into the sky by an eruption to meteors that streak across the night before exploding in the atmosphere, to solar flares that lash out from the sun and disrupt the satellites and technology we depend on. These events remind us that not all threats rise from the ground. Some descend from above with as little warning as a lightning strike. Remember Chelyabinsk in 2013? A meteor exploded over Russia with the force of dozens of nuclear bombs, injuring over 1,000 people and shattering glass across the city in seconds. No one predicted it, no one stopped it, and yet it arrived sudden, powerful, and humbling. Does this not fit perfectly into the pattern that Nostradamus outlined, a correction that comes from beyond our control, shaking us from the illusion that we are fully in charge? And then, after the shaking, the smoke, the fire, comes the silence. This ominous quiet might sound eerie, but it carries its own lesson. Think of the stillness after a great earthquake when the sirens have stopped, after a wildfire when the air hangs heavy with ash, after a storm when the streets are wet and strangely calm. In those moments, the noise of survival fades, and what's left is clarity. The silence is not empty, it's charged, like the pause in a conversation where you decide what you'll say next. It's the world giving us space to choose. Do we rush back to business as usual, pretending nothing happened? Or do we take the warning to heart and change the way we live? That quiet is not a gift we should waste, because it's in that pause that real transformation can begin. When we connect these signs, the trembling of the earth, the fire from above, and the heavy silence that follows, we see they are not random events but a cycle. Pressure builds, something sudden and undeniable forces a reckoning, and then the world gives us a moment to decide whether we'll learn from it or ignore it. This is why the prophecy feels so alive even today. It isn't locked in the past or bound to a single date like August 2025. It's a pattern that repeats whenever human arrogance meets nature's patience. The question is, will we be wise enough to recognize it while there's still time to act? And if these signs are already unfolding around us, how will we choose to respond, by clinging to the illusion of control or by stepping back into humility and respect for the forces that sustain and can just as easily undo our world? Number 3. August, the critical hour. When we come to August in the context of Nostradamus's warning, we aren't just talking about another page on the calendar. We're talking about a time of year when nature itself pushes everything to its limit. And if you've lived through a scorching August, you know exactly what I mean. It's the kiln of the year, the moment when heat reaches its peak, rivers and lakes pull back to their lowest levels, and every living thing, human, animal, or plant, feels the strain. In this intense season, the smallest weakness in a system can turn into a breaking point. High heat dries out forests until they're ready to burn at the smallest spark. It pushes electrical grids toward failure, and it even expands gases trapped underground, making the earth more restless. That's why August has a symbolic weight in prophecy. It's not that the month itself is cursed, but that it magnifies the pressures already building all year. And here's something you might find unsettling. Sometimes the most dangerous sign is not chaos, but quiet. In volcanology, a sudden lull in tremors, a pause in sulfur emissions, or the surface returning to a deceptive calm isn't a reason to relax. It's often a signal that pressure is building silently below. Life works the same way, doesn't it? How often does the storm come right after a period of strange calm? Nostradamus's text treats this abnormal stillness as a classic precursor, a moment to be alert, not complacent. Now, if we look at the patterns unfolding in our own time, we can see why some people feel this prophecy still speaks to us. I'm not here to stamp a date on disaster, but to help you see how August conditions often echo the same chain of events. Nostradamus described trembling, poisoned air, fire from above, and the ground giving way. Think of South America in recent years, where record-breaking heat and drought have primed entire landscapes for ignition. A single spark can turn vast forests into roaring furnaces, sending up towers of smoke that blot out the sun and make the air hard to breathe. In that moment, infected air stops being poetic language and becomes a literal reality. And it doesn't just stay where it starts. Smoke travels across borders, reminding us that in nature's ledger, no one lives in isolation. Or consider the Arctic, a place most of us think of as frozen and untouchable. Prolonged heat waves now burn through areas once blanketed in ice. Rivers in multiple countries are running low or even drying out, and with each year, we see more clearly that stability is only an assumption, not a guarantee. When those assumptions tremble, it's often the prelude to something far greater, shifting beneath us. And then there's the sea. Oceans are not immune to August's extremes. Marine heat waves, where the water temperature soars well beyond normal, can supercharge hurricanes, disrupt entire seasons of weather, and collapse delicate marine ecosystems. Warm water is fuel for storms, and when the seas run hot, the atmosphere listens. Add to that the quiet, almost invisible seismic murmurs detected deep beneath the surface, small swarms of earthquakes, subtle uplifts in the land, and harmonic tremors that hint at underground forces waking up. On their own, none of these signs guarantee a disaster, but together they sketch the same pressure pathway Nostradamus painted centuries ago. Energy accumulating, structures creaking, the buried seeking release. So, what's the takeaway here? August is not a month to fear, it's a month to respect. It concentrates the year's accumulated stresses and brings them into sharper relief, like a lens focusing sunlight. If we are wise, we won't just power through and ignore the gauges. We'll read them, talk about them, and act before they tip over. Nostradamus's warning isn't that August will always bring catastrophe, but that August is a test, a time when nature reminds us just how thin the line can be between stability and upheaval. The question is, will we take the hint while the quiet still holds, or will we mistake that stillness for safety and keep walking toward the edge? Because history and nature both tell us the quiet never lasts forever. If you've watched up to this point, you're already uncovering the mysteries behind Nostradamus's chilling warning about a great fire in August 2025. Comment below with fire prophecy to show you're ready to explore the truth behind these predictions. Don't click away, there's more to this prophecy than meets the eye, and the final moments of this video reveal details you won't want to miss. Number 4. Philosophical message and warning. When Nostradamus speaks of the proud in his quatrain, he is not pointing a finger at a single villain in history, nor is he condemning one specific person or nation. Instead, he's describing an attitude, a posture of hubris that can live in governments, corporations, scientists, technocrats, and in you and me. It's the belief that our ability to do something automatically gives us the right to do it, without considering the consequences. When governments test or deploy weapons deep under mountains or below the sea, they treat the Earth's crust, the very skin of the planet, as expendable, as if their need for power is more important than the stability that keeps everyone safe. When corporations operate on an extractive model, drilling faster, digging deeper, and stripping resources without thought for regeneration, they treat the living systems of the Earth like shelves in a warehouse, where everything is just inventory waiting to be sold. Profit becomes a permission slip to wound the Earth, and the bill is handed not to them, but to the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the future our children inherit. Even the realm of science, which should be about understanding and care, is not immune to this temptation. The warning here is not anti-science, but anti-presumption, because when research turns into schemes to own the climate, to bend geology to our will, or to use geoengineering for control rather than careful healing, knowledge becomes just another way to dominate. And then there's us, the ordinary people. Hubris is not only found in boardrooms or government halls, it's in the way we build homes on floodplains and fault lines, the way we treat convenience as an unshakable right, the way we forget the feel of soil in our hands and ignore the limits of the places we live. We act as if we are above the earth, when in reality we are held in her hands every second. In this frame, the proud are those who confuse capability with authority, who assume that because something can be done, it should be done, no matter how the ground might answer back. But the heart of the prophecy isn't about revenge, it's about reflection. The earth isn't out to punish us, she's showing us a mirror. Every tremor, every fire, every silence after a disaster reflects our choices back to us. Number 5. The triangle of warning. When we talk about Nostradamus's triangle of warning, trembling, fire, silence, we're not just listing 3 separate disasters. We're talking about a repeating code, a kind of feedback loop that nature uses to tell us something is out of balance, to force a correction, and to invite renewal. The first part of the cycle, trembling, is the signal that something deep in the system is under strain. Literally, this can mean seismic swarms, the ground warping, landslides shifting entire hillsides, clear signs that the earth is slipping under pressure. But it's not only the ground that trembles. Symbolically, this is when the systems we depend on, governments, supply chains, financial markets, even our own personal stability, start to wobble under overload. You've seen it before. Shortages spreading through a network like a crack in the pavement, institutions stumbling when pushed too far. The lesson here is simple but rarely followed. When we notice the tremors, we need to respond early, lighten the load, and redesign what's brittle before it breaks. If you've ever ignored a strange sound in your car until the engine gave out, you already know why this matters. Then comes fire from heaven, the corrective shock. On a literal level, this can be anything from a volcanic eruption blasting ash miles into the air, to a meteor tearing through the atmosphere, to lightning storms setting forests ablaze, or to solar flares rattling the technology we depend on. These events feel like the sky itself is striking down, and they often arrive quickly, without much warning. On a symbolic level, fire is not just destruction, it's exposure and purification. It reveals what was already dry, excessive, or corruptible, burning away what cannot last. This is why fire has been seen throughout history as both a danger and a cleansing force. The real challenge is how we respond. And then, perhaps the most underestimated phase, silence. Literally, it's the quiet after the chaos, the hush once the sirens stop, the still air after ash falls, the eerie calm between aftershocks. This stillness can be unnerving, but it's far from empty. Symbolically, silence is the space where conscience and clarity finally surface. It's when we can see plainly which foundations held strong and which gave way, both in our structures and in ourselves. Silence is a gift if we choose to treat it as one, because it gives us the time to reflect, repair, and rebuild with humility, so that the next cycle begins from a place of strength instead of denial. But so often, people rush to fill the silence with noise, activity, and distraction, missing the chance to learn from what just happened. Together, these 3 trembling warns, fire tests, silence resets, form a pattern that is far more important than any prediction about a specific date or year. This is not a prophecy of doom tied to a calendar. It's a living, ongoing cycle that plays out in nature, in societies, and in individual lives. The point is not to live in fear, but to live in awareness. If we notice the tremors, respect the fire, and honor the silence, we can use each phase to correct our course before the next cycle hits harder. That's the deeper value in Nostradamus's warning. It's not about waiting for disaster. It's about learning to read the signs so that when they come, we're ready to respond with wisdom rather than arrogance. The lesson for all of us is clear. Pay attention to the early warnings, let the shocks teach you instead of only hurting you, and use the quiet that follows to become stronger and more grounded than before. Because whether we're talking about the shaking earth, a blazing sky, or the deep hush that follows, the triangle of warning is not here to end us. It's here to give us a chance to change while there's still time. If you're still watching, you've already taken the first step toward understanding one of Nostradamus's most alarming predictions. Write "prophecy revealed" in the comments to let us know you're seeking the truth. The closing moments of this video may change how you see the months ahead. Don't miss them. Number 6. Humanity's choice. Right now, we are standing at a crossroads, a place where the patterns Nostradamus spoke of, the trembling of the ground beneath us, the fire that descends from the sky, and the deep silence that follows, are no longer just ancient words in a dusty text. They are unfolding around us, gaining momentum and pressing for our attention. The choice before us is both simple and profound. One path is the road of hubris, where we keep mistaking control for mastery, believing that because we can build higher, dig deeper, or manipulate nature on a massive scale, we should do it without question. On this path, we push the earth, its resources, and its systems to the breaking point, all while convincing ourselves that collapse will be an accident we couldn't have predicted. But if we're honest, these consequences aren't punishments in the way myths and fables might frame them. They're simply the natural results of ignoring balance, like a rope fraying after years of strain. The other path asks for something harder, but infinitely more rewarding: the humility to listen. What if we heard the earth shaking not as a threat, but as an invitation to pay attention? What if the fire wasn't just destruction, but a teacher burning away what no longer serves? What if the silence after disaster was not emptiness, but the space to breathe, to think, and to choose better? This second path calls us to rebuild not in the image of domination, but in genuine partnership with the living systems that sustain us. It urges us to replace the illusion of ownership with the practice of stewardship, and to meet the future with gratitude instead of entitlement. Because here's the truth: prophecy is not a death sentence, it is a mirror, and what it reflects depends entirely on who we decide to be when we look into it. The reflection can shift with our actions, our values, and our willingness to change. So the real question is this: knowing that what comes next is not fixed, but shaped by our choices, will we keep pretending we hold the reins while the ground buckles under us? Or will we step into a future where we walk with the earth instead of against it? In the end, the warning of Nostradamus is not about fearing a single date or event. It's about waking up to the fact that the cycle we're in can lead to renewal just as easily as it can lead to ruin. Which outcome we face will not be decided by fate alone, but by the choices we make in this very moment. Number 7. What you need to do right now. If the warning is clear and the choice is ours, then what we do next becomes everything. The patterns Nostradamus described are already moving through our time, and the question is no longer whether they're real, but how we respond. We can't control the trembling of the earth or the fire from the sky, but we can control the way we live before, during, and after they arrive. Preparedness is not about fear, it's about turning awareness into action, making sure that when the ground shakes or the air burns, we meet the moment with steadiness instead of panic. Here are practical steps to begin that shift right now. First, we must relearn how to observe and listen to nature, not as a backdrop to our lives, but as a living teacher. When you notice the odd heat in winter, the delay of spring blossoms, or the sudden migration of animals to unfamiliar places, you are hearing the Earth's voice. Science may record these shifts in data, but the human heart can feel them long before they reach the headlines. This is what the ancient masters did. They listened. In Buddhist thought, mindfulness is not only about sitting still, it is about paying full attention to the reality before you. To see the sky not as just the sky, but as a delicate balance of breath for all living things. And when nature speaks, we must answer not with denial, but with respect. Second, we can lighten the planet's load. It's tempting to believe that one person's habits cannot change the tide, but change begins exactly that way, one choice at a time. Every time we save energy, every time we resist buying what we do not need, every time we choose glass over plastic or plant a single tree, we remove a small weight from the Earth's back. Think of it like a roof under too much strain. Each brick you take away makes collapse less likely. Lao Tzu once wrote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." In our age, that step might be as simple as refusing the plastic bag, turning off unused lights, or repairing something instead of replacing it. It is not about doing everything, but about doing something again and again, until it becomes part of who we are. Third, we must prepare for emergencies not in fear, but in wisdom. In the same way a farmer stores grain for winter, we can ready ourselves for the unexpected. Have a basic kit for power outages, know where to go in case of fire or flood, and teach your loved ones what to do in a moment of crisis. Preparedness is not pessimism, it is compassion in action, because it spares panic and protects life. The Buddha taught that a mind that is prepared is never taken by surprise, and that applies as much to a wildfire as to the storms of the heart. By making readiness a part of life, we turn anxiety into quiet strength. Fourth, live humbly and build community. In times of uncertainty, wealth is not measured in possessions, but in the strength of our connections. A humble life does not mean a poor one. It means taking only what we need so that others, too, may have enough. Share tools, share food, share knowledge. When disaster strikes, a strong community means fewer will face hardship alone. This mirrors the Buddhist principle of Sangha, the community of support, without which the spiritual path is far more difficult. In the same way, survival without mutual care is fragile. With it, resilience grows. Fifth, keep your mind steady through what Nostradamus described as trembling, fire, silence. In our time, trembling may come as social unrest, fire as the literal burning of forests or the heat of conflict, and silence as the uneasy calm after loss. In each, the only compass we truly have is the mind. Panic blinds, fear narrows vision, but a calm mind, like a still lake, can reflect reality clearly. As the Dhammapada says, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." When the world shakes, let your actions come not from fear, but from clarity and compassion, for that is how the way forward is found. If Nostradamus could speak today, I believe he would not cry, "Run." He would say, "Wake up." For what approaches is not always the end. It can be the beginning of a different way of living if we act before it is too late. The prophecy of August or the fire from the sky is not a curse, it is a reminder. Nature may be patient, but patience is not eternal. Every cycle of trembling, burning, and stillness is another chance to choose differently, to live in balance rather than in excess. And though that chance may seem fragile, it is still in our hands, in this very breath, in this very moment. The future is not written only in the stars or in an old French manuscript. It is written in the choices we make today. And in that truth lies both our responsibility and our hope. In the end, Nostradamus's warning is not a sentence of doom, but a mirror asking us who we choose to be. The trembling, the fire, and the silence are not just events. They are reminders that balance is fragile, and our choices shape what comes next. The future is not fixed. It's alive in every action we take today. If this message has resonated with you, help it reach more people. Please like this video, share it with others, subscribe to The Journey of Wisdom, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our upcoming explorations into ancient prophecy and timeless truth. Together, let's walk with awareness, humility, and hope into the days ahead.